but with risk comes great reward. It's like the way I think about like real estate down in El Salvador. It's like buying Bitcoin back in 2011. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know if it's a scam or if it's like vaporware or or like whatever.
So you want to be a real estate investor, but where do you start? How do you know what information and sources to trust? That's where I come in. I'm Jonny Catani, and this is the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. Hey guys, real quick, before we start, go to investwithkatani.com and download my free ebook, Is Commercial Real Estate Recession Proof? Now to today's show. What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny Catani, and I'm joined today by Jonny Langenbrunner. Jonny Langenbrunner is a co-founder of Salvador CIP, El Salvador's preeminent immigration agency. We are switching gears a little today, and we are going to be talking about something I'm still learning about, but grateful we have someone like Jonny here. We're learning about Bitcoin and specifically these countries that are allowing you to use Bitcoin and invest in the country and potentially become a citizen. So Jonny, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Jonny.
Absolutely. So before we jump into it, kind of take us back to the beginning. We were talking off camera. You mentioned you got into Bitcoin about 2016. What was it that got you into it, and what's led you to where you're at now?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm sure some of your viewers know like what Bitcoin is. So it's a cryptocurrency. The way I see it is just like the US dollar, just like the euro, or just like the Canadian dollar. It's just an instrument that you can buy things with, is the way I see it. So I saw it as a way that it was kind of like this freedom oriented thing where I don't have to deal with a bank account. Like if I want to invest in something, if it's a coffee or if it's, a house or whatever, why can't I just, send it? Why have to like drive down to the bank and send the wire, or do this, or have to deal with all these third parties? And it was just something to me that was just easier. Sure, it's gotten a lot of hype lately because it goes up and it goes down and stuff, and right now people are very sad about it, because the price is down, but but like the main idea of it is that, it's something that can be used as a currency to invest. And I saw that as something that is just extremely, promising, and there's a reason why today it's just like so popular. Like you got like Fidelity and boom, 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 just like everyone and their moms, like are buying Bitcoin right now, or, like using it in some way. So it's pretty mainstream now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like everybody, even in real estate now, you're starting to see tokenization of real estate, either the whole asset or, parts of it. Even as a limited investor, being able to tokenize your, your equity stake in the asset and potentially be more liquid and, kind of obviously trade on the blockchain. So now we're starting to see countries, whole countries are getting into this in terms of, setting up like an infrastructure for their financial system. So kind of talk about, maybe El Salvador specifically, or, kind of some of these countries and what they're doing with it.
Yeah, sure. So I think it's really interesting. So I think it was November of last year, El Salvador came out of nowhere and said, hey, we're going to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. When you really think about this, like what is legal tender? So here in the US, legal tender is the US dollar. No matter where you are, you have to accept US dollar. Like it's not just something that you pay your taxes with. It's something that if you're selling apples on the side of the street, you have to accept like US dollar, but if someone's trying to pay with Canadian dollar, you don't necessarily have to accept that unless you're in Canada. So, it was this really important thing, saying, hey, now you can use like this new currency, and it's like this global currency. And also, like, let me jump back a little bit up to this point, and really still like El Salvador has never had like their own currency. So for like the longest time, they've just been using the US dollar. down there, it's mostly just like a cash-based economy. So when I went down there my first time, which was last year, I had, like US dollars in my wallet, and I was just able to go around and like buy tacos and buy beer and stuff like that for like 1/10 of the price, than here in the US. But also I was able to, get out my Bitcoin wallet and start, like buying tacos with Bitcoin and buying beer, like my hotel stay and stuff like this. And it's one of those things where people talk about, people, kind of heard, people know about Bitcoin, people kind of just hold it and hope that the price goes up and sell it. But, actually using what Bitcoin is actually intended for like the first time in, it's like, I think like 12 years of existence, was, something like extremely like mind blowing. And it's one of those things where, I tell people like, you have to actually go down there and experience it, go down to the beach and buy like your margarita with some Bitcoin, your whole brain just like changes,
Wow, that's fascinating. So I guess a big question I have is, obviously it fluctuates, right? So does the value of the good fluctuate as well with it, or how is that calculated?
Right. So, I mean, as anything, things are still priced in, like US dollars. So like if this margarita, maybe down there is like 70 cents. All right. You're still going to pay, 70 cents worth of Bitcoin. Right. So, when we get to the turn, like, or when we get to the stage where things are like actually priced in Bitcoin, that's going to be on a whole new level of things. But right now it's like, it's still priced in US dollars, but like you're paying with Bitcoin. So we're not quite there yet, but it's like a huge step. It's like now people are starting to use it in commerce and stuff like that.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So if Bitcoin's like way down, like how it is right now, then you're a little like, it feels more expensive than, of course, 70 cents for a margarita should never feel expensive, but you get what I'm saying. So awesome.
Right.
So you set up El Salvador CIP. It's to help with immigration, really with like a lot of nomads, how we were talking offline. Just kind of talk about these nomadic visas. Obviously, a lot of people are turning into digital nomads, as we're calling them now. So kind of talk about that.
Yeah. So I think, especially honestly, like this whole like digital nomad thing was kind of, it wasn't nearly as popular until like COVID hit, so like everyone's like now like quarantining their home and just like working from the laptops. And then like, some things, might click when like you're stuck, in your parents' basement because you can't afford your rent anymore, or like whatever, like crazy situation, or you're just like, you're in quarantine, you haven't like left the house, and it's like, dude, I can go somewhere else that's way nicer, that is cheap. I can be on the beach somewhere, maybe in a country that's like less restrictive, or, or like whatever, and I can still work, and I saw this happen in my own job because I used to do in-person sales and stuff like that. And then as soon as COVID hit, not doing in-person sales, I'm just, I'm on the phone with clients, boom, 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 boom. I'm, like on my laptop, talking to clients, stuff like that. And I'm like, I can work from anywhere. And so, that's when I was actually living in DC at the time. And eventually I moved down to Florida, just like everybody. And I was working out the beach and working at coffee shops there. I'm actually currently in Europe, just working here. I was in El Salvador like a few months ago, just working there. And it's kind of cool just like bounce around, especially when you go to countries that are like, where living is just like cheaper, where you can get like the 70 cents margaritas and like the 50-cent tacos and stuff like that. And it's just cheaper, and then you're getting paid in US dollars. You can kind of like live like a king and like save some money and travel the world and stuff like that. So we're seeing like just like a huge uptick of these digital nomads, to the point where like, COVID is kind of like going away. And so like now companies are like, hey, now you have to come back to the office, and people are like, nah, I don't feel like doing that. Or, well, I don't live in that city anymore. It's like, it's like this weird thing that has happened, like because of COVID. And I think it was probably, trending that way anyways. So anyways, when it comes to, like El Salvador on these visas, a lot of countries, especially I think like Croatia and Estonia were like some of like the first countries to, kind of say, hey, all you like digital nomads, come work here, like come to Europe, like come to the beach. And then like these Caribbean countries start doing that. I know like Costa Rica has a, pretty big program, like the Bahamas. And it's like, and if you're stuck, like, I don't know, like, like in Jersey City, like in some basement, like you kind of just like, oh, well, maybe working in the Bahamas might be nice. Maybe go to Croatia might be nice, and then if you're like a diehard like Bitcoiner like me, and then now you hear about El Salvador, doing this whole Bitcoin thing, like, you know what? Instead of being here, like in, stuck here, you're like in Jersey City, or even like stuck here, like in beautiful Florida, like, dude, I want to go down to, let's say a place like El Salvador, buy your 50%, cheap, cheap tacos and stuff like that. And actually just like live a better life, like save some more money, go to a place where you feel accepted. So because I saw myself as a potential customer of a product I wanted, I set up El Salvador CIP, and essentially what we're helping these digital nomads essentially move down to, the country for the first time. And what's crazy is if you think about El Salvador, like no one really talks about going there. And it's honestly like a pretty poor country. Like there was like a lot of like gang violence in the past and stuff like that. We were basically one of the first like immigration agencies to ever set up in this country, because most, like locals were always trying to get to the US or trying to get to Mexico, trying to get to Canada. It's like they're just trying to get the hell out, Jonny. So the fact that we set this up, people are like, like kind of shocked, like who wants to come and move here? It's like, well, like you're doing this whole Bitcoin thing, so now we want to move here. And now the people there, their spirits have like completely changed overnight. Where like they're actually for the first time they're excited about like the future development of their country. And it's just like this most amazing thing. Like people are actually proud of their country. People are like excited about the future and stuff like that. And then, like people like me and you could potentially move down there, spend like our US dollars or Bitcoin or something like that, and contribute to that economy. And like just like really help out people that like are welcoming to you, like they actually welcome your money, they welcome your investments and stuff like that. And it just changes like your mindset.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. And you're right, definitely not, the top of anyone's bucket list, at least, in the past. Probably
Right.
an overlooked country, I think, in terms of going down to that area to visit. So are they working towards, sounds like they're probably putting in infrastructure to handle all of this, the government.
Correct.
Are they working towards any like tax favors or incentives, especially towards Bitcoin?
Yeah. So, okay. So yeah. So here in the US, like Bitcoin, if you sell it or buy it or whatever, you have to pay like capital gains and stuff like that. Down there in El Salvador, there's no capital gains on Bitcoin because it's a currency, So if it's like you buy and sell the US dollar, there's, so that's one huge tax advantage. I guess for Americans, that doesn't matter because we pay taxes anywhere we go. But, like if you're Canadian or like German or whatever, which a lot of our clients are actually Canadian and German and US, a lot of them, they can just move down to El Salvador and now they don't pay any capital gains on their Bitcoin trade. So like, if you're buying Bitcoin at the price today, which is like dirt cheap, and then like 1 year from now, it's I don't know, like $100,000, and you made some good gains. And if you're living down there in El Salvador, you won't have to pay any tax on that. So, they're doing these things within government. They're, things are slow. They're working on a lot more other like tax advantages. So kind of like the biggest tax advantage that they announced last year is that they're going to be building a brand new city. Okay. So they're calling this city Bitcoin City. All right. And they're going to just build complete new infrastructure. They're going to build an airport. They're going to build a train. And it's going to be like this huge city. And the cool thing about this city is that there's going to be like no taxes at all other than like a 10% sales tax. That's it. So like no income, like no corporate, no property tax, nothing. So this area is already being like zoned out and stuff like that. They have, like investors, all piling in. They're talking to like architecture firms and stuff like that. So once this is like all set in stone, then like this is going to be pretty sick place to actually go there and like start investing in real estate in like this Bitcoin city, and then like not have to deal with property tax. And then if this actually becomes like a huge hub for, like this whole new class of people, that we call like Bitcoiners and stuff like that, which is like this like global niche thing that was like weird in the past, but now it's like pretty mainstream, and they're all moving to like this like new tropical location with like modern infrastructure and stuff like that. Probably a pretty good investment. And then you don't have to pay any tax if you live there. Pretty sweet.
Wow, that's fascinating. Bitcoin City. And that's what they're going to call it, or what are they going to call it? Do they know?
Yeah, no, they're actually going to call it Bitcoin City. So,
Oh, wow.
I mean, so it's pretty, it's pretty cut and dry. So obviously, like for like your listeners, like this is something that you can invest into today. This is just for all intents and purposes, kind of like a pipe dream, like of the government, to be like 100% clear. But, they are actively working towards this, like with any government, things move extremely slow. And especially in Latin America, it's on a whole new level, compared to like even like the US. We think the US is slow sometimes, but, these are the things that they're changing. Like even in the past like few months that our agency has been around, they have made laws, so if you actually wanted to become like a nomad visa, they've actually made that process like quite substantially easier. It takes like 2 or 3 months to process. It's like pretty cheap, but like so like they're constantly improving things because like the country is still pretty like bureaucratic, but like they're making they're going in the right direction compared to like let's say like a US or Canada, where some might argue that like it's becoming more like bureaucratic. There's more taxes, there's more this on that. It's like, and I'm sure like your listeners who are like in the commercial like real estate area, like they know there's more restrictions and there's more it's like kind of crap that you guys have to deal with. So they're moving in the right direction. And so like if you're investing into a country that's moving in the right direction, it doesn't matter for like a Bitcoiner, like that is just basically just like a catalyst for, like El Salvador, like maybe becoming like the new Singapore of like Latin America or something like that. Like it's a very small country. The current administration like basically like controls, the whole Congress, like for better or for worse. I think like he controls like 87%, of the Congress.
Wow.
So yeah, so like that's why he'll like jokingly call himself like El Dictator and stuff like that. Because he's like everyone is just like obsessed with this guy. So like he basically just like does whatever he wants. He's like, I think in his mid-30s or like late 30s, he's just like a nerd, so like someone who's kind of like our age and just like, and let's just do like this whole Bitcoin thing and like let's actually make this country like, something that like people in these Western countries like actually want to come down and invest. And like he's doing a really good job. So like the country's moving in a good direction. So like if this is like a place where you think about like buying real estate and stuff like that, real estate's really cheap. Obviously, since this is, it's in Latin America, it's in a country with not the best history. There's like a lot of risk, but with risk comes great reward, So like the way I think about like real estate down in El Salvador, it's like buying Bitcoin back in 2011. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know if it's a scam or if it's like vaporware or, or like whatever. But you could potentially make some good money. So when I went down there a few months ago, my co-founder was, he was taking us to some like beachfront property and stuff like that. And so we saw like some like really, really nice houses, like decently modern, but still kind of has like the like Latin American touch to it. And we're talking to the owners, and the owners, saying like, hey, this property was for sale for 100,000. It's maybe like 2 acres.
Wow.
And today I'm selling it for like 400,000 because I know that these Bitcoiners are going to come in. They're going to want to buy to the country, and they're just like crazy bullish. Like they're just like pricing the real estate hub like ridiculously high, and like they're all doing it. And I've had several friends go down there and buy real estate already. So like I want to go in now before like the actual FOMO starts. So but it's like so early on that you just like, you don't know like where is this going to go. So like there's like a lot of risk involved, compared to like if you're buying real estate in the US, it's like, all right, well, it's safe, like it's probably one of like the safest places to like buy real estate. But if you're looking for some gains, like it's probably like not the best place. I mean, sure, like lately, like real estate's been going up like crazy amount. But that probably has to do with like inflation and like a lot of other factors. But so like it's a whole different ball game. I'm not like the most experienced person. I'm kind of just like jumping right into it because I kind of see like potential huge benefit. But then again, like I got into Bitcoin like back in 2016, so I like risky things, and I see like potential in this country. So what our agency does is help people fulfill like that wanting to like figure that out for themselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. Yeah, it definitely sounds like very, again, still speculative for sure. Which, like you said, in 2016, Bitcoin was and still is speculative, right? We have no idea. I mean, a couple coins are falling seamlessly overnight, some that are even supposedly tied to the US dollar. So yeah. And then when you compare that to US real estate definitely more stable. It's an established infrastructure for a few hundred years, as opposed to El Salvador just kind of getting to there. So yeah, hopefully I would love to see that happen, in terms of revitalizing a country and, even giving a place for, like you said, nomads and even, more specifically Bitcoiners to have a place to go. Because I know a lot of countries are starting to see it. So that's awesome. So as we wind down here, you mentioned what the company does, but what just kind of give us a real quick, kind of what the process looks like in terms of, going through you guys and buying real estate or getting a nomadic visa.
Yeah, sure. So essentially, if you go to or email at us at info@elsalvadorcip.com, if you're interested in moving down, process is essentially you need some basic like documents, like passport copy, maybe like a copy from like the FBI or like police check, like these basic things apostolized and like notarized. And then, once everything is like submitted, it takes like 2 or 3 months of process. You can come down and start that process. You can send us the paperwork before, stuff like that. And then we essentially get the whole process going. And then the visa is good for about 2 years, and you can kind of come and go as you please, as long as you stay in the country within like, like 6-ish months. That's about it. It's like very, very simple. And, and on top of that, we can help, like pick people up from the airport. Cause when you're arriving in a new country, like you don't know how the taxis are and stuff like that. We can help people with housings, hotels. We can take them on tours. And if you actually do want to buy real estate, we can connect you, with some local on the ground, like real estate agents that we trust, that we've already worked with, so we're kind of like we can help you, put you in contact with the right people, and if you are just a Bitcoiner and you want to just work on the beach and, eat your like 50-cent tacos and drink your 70s, like margaritas, we can put you in contact with like the local Bitcoin community and stuff like that too. So, we have our hands, all over the country and stuff like that. And, I'm from the US, my co-founder is from El Salvador. He's on the ground taking care of the things. Then I'm kind of like the person who was, essentially the first customer, and so I know how to like speak the language of a Bitcoiner or like a digital nomad, because that's who I am, and like that's the best way to serve a customer if you're, if you would actually theoretically be a customer.
Yeah, absolutely. No, makes perfect sense. Yeah, you have to have that. You have to understand the customer viewpoints. The same in real estate, right? Like I raise capital for real estate, but I'm also a passive investor myself. So I know what, again, how to talk to them, right? And very, very important. And people aren't going to do something like that unless you understand and speak that language. So definitely a factor there. Awesome. Well, I've got 5 questions I ask all of my guests. We'll jump to those here for the final 5. First question, best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
Best advice I got from a mentor. Ooh, that's a good one. I would say, as long as every single day you're moving in the right direction, don't complain.
I love it. I love it. So true. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
I think kind of like the focus I have in my life is just helping people like put themselves in like the best environment they can to like succeed. And so like for me personally, finding like a cheaper place to live and that's comfortable, and then also like promoting the ideals of like Bitcoin. So like this new agency kind of like fits that.
Awesome. I love it. Favorite non-investment related book?
Ooh, non-investment related book. I would say there's this book called Sovereign Individual, and the whole book is essentially about how us as individuals, as technology gets better, and especially like with Bitcoin, like Bitcoin's our own bank, then we can just work remotely like anywhere. What sovereign individual means is that eventually, instead of like classifying ourselves as like Canadians or like Americans or like British or whatever, we can just go wherever we want in the world and just do whatever we want, and that we're in control. And essentially like these governments will start to like actually compete more for ourselves, like how we're seeing in El Salvador or or like whatever. Like there's all these countries that are trying to like compete for like these digital nomads or investors, and all these kind of things to come. So like that's kind of what like the book talks about.
Wow, that's awesome. What a fascinating concept. And certainly I can see why, or I can even see that happening, maybe not potentially in our lifetime to the scale of the global economy, so to speak, but
Right.
certainly that's absolutely where we're headed, because you're starting to see our generation really just, sort of detaching, right? Not staying in the same job for maybe longer than 3 to 5 years, digital nomads and just these different things where you're just like, understanding that we no longer need to sort of do the same thing for forever. You can have experiences and still get, the things you want out of life without having to sell your soul to some corporation or even a country for that matter, which is really awesome. Cool. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I would love to turn invisible.
Nice. That's a good one. I like it. Absolutely. Cool. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more?
Yeah, so you can email me at Joey at elsalvadorcip.com.
Awesome. We'll link down in the show notes. Joey, this has been incredible. Thank you. Nice change of pace. I know most of my listeners are young entrepreneurs, so I could imagine that most of them are involved in crypto somehow. So it was really great to get your insight into all this, and good luck moving forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonny.
Absolutely. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Listen, I know it's cliche and you hear it all the time, but please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Even though this is technically a daily podcast, it's coming out the next day. We have a ton of content coming your way. So please like and subscribe. It helps a ton. Leave comments. Would love to know what you guys think. And we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.